Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of Geekified. Today we are here to talk about the end of a fantastic year of, well, just shit basically. It's been absolutely horrible. And to sum it up, we had the creators of Black Mirror do a mockumentary. 2020, a year so shit, even the creators of Black Mirror couldn't make it up. That's the opening line. What could possibly go wrong with it? Do the guys at Geekified like it? Do the critics like it? That's the biggest question. So we're having a look at Death to 2020. Right, so we're going to delve into Death to 2020, a mockumentary by Charlie Brooker, who is probably his most famous project has been Black Mirror, a show that absolutely everyone seems to love. It's a lover of the darling of the critics, and it's got a huge fan base as well. Death to 2020 seems to be sitting on the fence for everybody. It's a very, very strange one. It's getting absolutely mauled by some critics, but absolutely applauded by others. Majority of the people that I've spoke to on a personal level seem to enjoy it. I enjoyed it, but we're here obviously to discuss and see what we think is good, what we think is bad, and what it's all about, really. So hi to Nathan.
Hello.
And hi to Mark.
Hello.
And you've got me, Chris, as per usual. So, Death to 2020. Some cast for a mockumentary, isn't it? Samuel L. Jackson, Hugh Grant, Lisa Kudrow, Kamal Namanji, Tracy Ullman. Yeah, it's some cast. Why do you think it's getting pounded by the critics?
Not what people expected it to be. Everyone saw it's by the makers of Screen Wipe, maker of Black Books, and expected it to be either of those things, and it's not really either of them. Screen Wipe's like a commentary type thing, and Black Books is Black Books. Black Books is good as well. But Black Mirror is obviously a satirical dystopian sort of drama, whereas this is a pure let's just rip the piss out of everything and anything that's happened this year and just make a lot of people look incredibly stupid, which I think it did fantastically well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are instantly comparing it to Brooker's far superior show, Screen Wipe. Screen Wipe has been one of my favorite shows for the last decade and a bit. And then obviously Black Mirror, which is scripted, whereas this is meant to come in the middle. This is meant to be a documentary, but I think it is Black Mirror meets Screen Wipe. I think it's both of them put together perfectly, because Black Mirror is obviously scripts where people, act out roles. Screen Wipe is Charlie Brooker sitting behind a desk with some news footage and then mocks it by actually just telling the truth about it. Because usually it's ludicrous. And this is just putting those words into actors' mouths for the first ever time. It's a bit glossier, it's a bit shinier, it's a bit more American than Screen Wipe. But that's where the Black Mirror aspect of it comes in. And then just the fact it's taking the piss out of everyone and everything is the Screen Wipe aspect. And to me, it's not perfect, but it's a great amalgamation of both of his two greatest works.
Yeah, I think I've not watched a lot of Screen Wipe, full of sin on me, because I know how good it is, the ones I have watched, but it's not something that I've actively followed. But Black Mirror was a huge, huge thing for me. I absolutely loved it. For me, the biggest question that I've got is the huge divide that I'm seeing seems to be between normal people and critics. That seems to be where that fine line is, which we've discussed a couple of times on a few episodes before, when you actually look at people who criticize stuff and that actually their job is to review stuff, kind of like what we are doing. But I consider ourselves to be normal people doing reviews rather than critics doing reviews, because we're not paid to do reviews. But we're starting to see, I think I put up on our WhatsApp chat, one of the women who reviewed, I can't remember where she was from, it was maybe Vulture, maybe, but she actually basically says, it's nothing you haven't seen before. You would have had to have been in a closet since the beginning of February to enjoy this show. It's a mockumentary about a year. How can a critic be so desensitized to what they're actually reviewing, or idiotic reviews like that, where they're basically slagging off a show that is an analysis of a year by saying that, oh well, we've seen it all before. That was an analysis of last year.
But I sort of thought, I didn't take it as being a review of what's happened in the year. They were making fun of people's reactions to what happened more than anything else. You know, whether it be obviously I mean, I think some of the character names were genius. Yeah, the girl with the hair and the ginger hair and the flat, her name was Gemma Nerick, so she was Jean Eric, which I thought was just absolutely genius.
I love that. I do love that.
His name is Pyrex Flask. And just there's loads of one. It's just they're making fun of, like, you know, even the bit when they explaining the science and they have like pictures of sausages getting made and stuff like that. And it's just because, you know, people, they always have these people in the news, but no one ever listens to them. So let's just put some random footage on. It doesn't really matter because it's making fun.
Yeah, because it was the guy's juggling and stuff, and then he basically says, "What's that you've got on? What is that?"
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was perfect. But I also want to ask this: the critic in which you speak of, saying, "Oh, we've heard it all before this year." Does she watch the big fat quiz of the year and goes, "Well, if you lived through the year, you know all the answers." That's the point.
Yeah.
That it's a look back. Like, yes, you've heard it all before, but it's a look back. There's so much stuff in Death to 2020 that I was just like, I completely forgot that happened this year.
Australian bushfires, I forgot.
Yeah, January kicking it right off there.
Well, yeah, I know. I actually forgot about that as well until it came up on that, and I was like, oh god, yeah, that was this year.
Or just everything dumb that Trump said. You know, I forgot that he told us to, well, not us, he told the American people to drink bleach and inject like Purell into their veins, you know. And do you know what? That just those little bits of callbacks to this year, we were like, oh yeah, I remember that. That it was like nostalgic for a year that was terrible, you know.
They called him an experimental pig human or something, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's just a genius line, isn't it?
But I think, I mean, even at the point when the narrator was giving you jokes like you almost wouldn't get. I mean, I've not actually wrote any down, sadly, before doing this review, but there's jokes where he gives like somebody's job and then just says something completely and utterly random. It doesn't mean anything. And then just kind of continues, because, you know, it's almost like a joke. Like when you're watching the documentaries, these guys could say whatever they want, but you not listen to that part. You just kind of skip over that in your head. And it's an absolute mockery of that kind of thing. But you've got, I mean, I've got some, sorry.
What's it they call Davos again? At the start of the year, and then they say something about, what's her name? Greta Thunberg. That was hilarious as well. Let's see one about her. I can't remember what it. Everyone was it? She's like Billie Eilish or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was hilarious. I mean, I've got some of the actual negative reviews on the screen here just now. It retells the still fresh events of the past 12 months while piggybacking onto jokes already beaten to death a million times on Twitter. That's a critic's review. That's from a company called Exclaim.
This is the problem, is that critics think that people still use Twitter. There's like 16, so you're one of the 16 people still left on Twitter. 2 of the 16
my family use Twitter and we use it really well, okay?
All right, so it's your family that are making all these jokes that they apparently piggyback on.
But I mean, like, how this shows you how separated. His name's Alex Hudson from Exclaim. Sorry, I'm calling you out for your shit review. He's obviously that deluded that he thinks that when a joke's on Twitter, just because he's read it, like the rest of the planet's read it. I mean, how many people is going to watch a Netflix program? Any program, you're literally talking about the planet, but he thinks that because you've seen a joke on Twitter, suddenly everybody's seen it.
I would
think about a different job.
I would like to see which jokes he's talking about, because I find it very difficult to believe that Charlie Brooker and Annabelle Jones, is that how you would steal a single joke. Both of them are absolute geniuses in satirical, ironical, and dark humor. I don't think they're out there stealing jokes. So show me some proof that these jokes have been made on Twitter, and I'll concede, but I don't believe him. I think he's just written a piss poor review.
I think he's not watched it, basically.
And I read two reviews back to back that were, one was really good, one really bad one. The really good one was from NME, which is, a fairly reputable source, and they really liked it. And then I read one from the Independent, and they like slated it, saying that, well, they got bored watching it, and there's a couple of good jokes, but nothing too great in it. And I thought, well, it's kind of surprised, because I like the Independent, it's a good newspaper, but I think that surprised me, because I think there's lots of very layers and layers of jokes in it. And I mean, I was laughing out loud through the hour and 10 minutes of it, pretty much the whole way through.
I think, to be honest, if you're expecting screen wipe or weekly wipe or yearly wipe or game wipe, all his different wipe based programs, they were 28-minute programs. He could have made 3 episodes of that show, in the wipe format. And I think if you're sitting down and expecting it just to be screen wipe, it was a bit long-winded. It didn't need to be quite so long. It could have cut out. I didn't think any of the Lisa Kudrow jokes really landed. She was always the one saying one thing, and then they'd go, no, but we've got a quote of you saying it 1 minute ago. No, I didn't say that. And it's like, I get it that's how, American politics at the moment has become Shaggy song with just wasn't me. And it's like, but, I don't know. Every time Lisa Kudrow showed up, who is a great actress, it was the same joke for her. And that she was only acting it. She didn't write it. And I felt it was just a bit like, okay, you could have cut all of them out and just kept one.
Yeah, the other, I always forget the actress's name. One that was in Palm Springs, Christina Miliatis.
Yeah, the generic white housewife.
But she was basically
soccer mom,
playing the same role as Lisa Kudrow, but to better effect. The sort of I've been like brainwashed by Facebook and things like that into believing this stuff, and the whole thinking black people have stolen everything and that sort of stuff. It was basically the same character, but just done in a much better way, and a much more sort of,
because it's more relatable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we're not politics, we are normal people. Hopefully not that character, but it was a more relatable character in the sense of she was just meant to be a normal person. But like you got great segments that got too little screen time. Leslie Jones definitely deserved more screen time as the behavioral psychologist.
Yeah, psychologist. I thought she was great as well.
Yeah, she's got my new favourite insult, calling people woke tards. I like that.
So my favourite one of hers was it was a train wreck and a shit show. I won't call it that because that's an insult to trains and shit. I was pissing myself with that line. I thought that was brilliant.
I had to pause it at that joke because I was laughing so much I was missing like what else was being said after that.
I liked her one. I fucking hate people. Well, that's the title of my next book.
I think she was perfect for it. I think she was very, very well cast because she's got a very almost kind of aggressive, dominant persona, and then she's very shouty and very put down, but she's supposed to be a psychologist who listens to people. And then she says things like, "Oh, I hate people." You know what I mean? I think she was very, very, very good at that role. Very well cast for that. Yes. I've got another review, obviously, since we're talking about the cast here, from Ed Cummings in The Independent. So his review says, "You feel for Grant, not given a single decent line, and several that make you want to slide under the sofa. The credit lists 18 writers. How many of them did it take to come up with the idea that Joe Biden is old?" Yep. So I'm more looking at the Grant part of that. But it's not a single decent line.
His thing about saying that he remembers being at the Battle of Endor just ended me. Like I was rolling about that.
And he's a historian, so obviously this absolute piss take on the fact that people are just can make shit up and say they were there at things, and then like when he was talking about like, how nobody speaks to him, not even his wife, not his wife's friends, not his friends. When he's talking, he just gives a big massive list of everybody, basically anyone you could imagine.
Yeah, I felt, to be honest, when Hugh Grant showed up on screen, I did sigh a wee bit because I'm not a huge Hugh Grant fan. His movies are usually not aimed at me. And but I thought
that means you can't write any reviews on them, by the way.
Yeah, that's the first time in a long time that I was properly invested in something that had Hugh Grant in it. You know, like I thought he played the character really well, and I like how he called his drink his little companion. You know,
Yeah, it
that
was
sort of
assistant, his little assistant.
assistant. That's it. Like always drinking professor. You know, and it was just, but tastefully done. It wasn't a brown bag situation. It was just I'm just going to put him here out of shot, which I think we
It's
all
like,
have.
I've got my
well.
assistant here.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've all got
We
our
all
assistant.
have. So no,
Yeah, sorry, Mark.
No, I was going to repeat myself, which is, yeah, I thought Grant nailed that character really well, and like just the whole seedy and horrible side of that character was played as very, very subtle undertones, but it was all there.
Yeah, I think I'm very, very. Again, I don't really call out too many critics, but I bloody will. There's another one that caught my eye just before we go. Death to 2020 just feels like a failure of the imagination. That's Catherine Van Arendonk from New York Magazine and Vulture, classed as a top critic. Her review, Death to 2020 feels like a failure of the imagination. How is it a failure? What does she mean by failure of the imagination? I've not looked at the full review, but that's one of the highlights from it. Failure of imagination means that you've not come up with anything interesting. This guy's come up with an analysis of the entire year. Can't really change anything because it's a mockumentary about a year, but yeah, it's a failure of the imagination. So I don't really know where people like these critics are awful.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel, and this is not meant to offend all our American audience, but I feel that the American grasp on satire is completely different than the British grasp on satire. Nathan pointed out one of the funniest and subtle, stupid throwaway lines was half pig man Donald Trump. You know, that's not even really a joke. But as you said, there was jokes slipped into people's introductions so brilliantly subtle that and people are going to flood the comments with I'm wrong and here's an example of why. But I feel Britain does those jokes so much better than American TV and movie does. You know, America has blockbusters which Britain can barely touch, but subtle satire. So I'm going to say that the girl or the woman from the New Yorker, like that's British humor for you.
Yeah.
I honestly couldn't agree more. I mean, it's quite, when you've got people like famous for presenting the Emmys, like Ricky Gervais, who was seen as almost scandalous for the stuff he was saying because he takes a piss out of people. Whereas Americans are probably turning around to it now, but it's still quite a thing they kind of put at the side. They don't take the piss out of each other. Whereas here, taking the piss out of each other means we like you.
I remember there's one point when they make an Epstein joke as well, talking about the Davos thing. A very subtle Jeffrey Epstein joke in it. And you're just like,
yeah,
that wouldn't happen in an American show. You know, that's not something they would make a joke about. Which I thought was quite brave, and it made me laugh because it was a funny joke. But it was something to do with being on yachts with child molesters or something. I can't remember exactly now the joke, but just that's the sort of thing that they would jump to instant offence rather than it's just a joke. Let's just. That's what I mean. That's what Ricky
get upset by it.
I mean, Ricky Gervais obviously did that at the Emmys or whatever it was last year as well, didn't he?
Yeah. If anyone's not watched the Emmys with Ricky Gervais and you love a bit of take the piss kind of humour, watch it. It's hilarious. Guy's a comedy god. But I think obviously, I mean, it's clear that we loved it. I know that the other members of the team that have watched it have really loved it as well. And it's a bit sad to see so many critics again being so out of touch with actual normal people who watch stuff. It's just the divide between I've actually made this episode more of an analysis of bloody critics than I have of actual analysis of Death to 2020. But I think it's becoming quite evident.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this is just the final blow of 2020 is that 2020 can't take the piss out itself. So it's slating death to 2020, you know.
I read something today that said the most damning thing about this year is that next year is called 2021. And it's a bit. I mean, even with everything that's happening, the sort of this year, especially more than any other year I can remember, the sort of rise of cancel culture and stuff like that has come out much more this year. I don't know because everyone's just at home on the computer all day now, so that's maybe paid rise to that. But I think they do a good job in this of making fun of that as well by putting in jokes that you probably shouldn't and talking about things that you probably shouldn't talk about and making fun of things like a pandemic. And one thing I did think was quite interesting when they got on to talk about the Black Lives Matter George Floyd thing, it became a bit more serious for about 5 10 minutes, much less humor, which I thought was really clever the way they did that, and then picked up again afterwards. It was really interesting how they did that as well. Very clever.
No, I think I'd say that's almost problematic to make a joke about that, if you know what I mean. It's almost, there's not very many jokes you could make about that kind of situation, which is very right. If you put a joke in about that, I think it probably distasteful, to be honest. But I like what they did. They did analyze it properly and they did talk about it, and then they swiftly made it comedy again. But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I was just going to sum up with also the fact that the people that are hating this because it's not screen wipe, that halfway through the year, Charlie Brooker did antiviral wipe, which was his summing up of 2020's pandemic to that point. Mm-hmm. So if you want screen wipe, go watch that. Yeah. And then you can come back to Death to 2020 and you'll have both things. And I think both were great. But yeah, sorry, that was just my final thought on it, was if you wanted screen wipe and were disappointed, go watch antiviral wipe. It's out there on iPlayer and whatnot.
I think they put this together quickly as well. From what I read, it's they did it all quite quickly. Death 2020 was written, and that's why they had so many writers, because they wanted to do it really quickly.
Well, that was something that someone slagged, basically saying 18 writers. 18 writers is pretty common these days. So again, think of your crappy reviews before you try to add that. That's 18 people just to help Beyonce pick up the pencil.
Yeah,
she doesn't use a pencil. She probably writes in children's blood or something. Who knows? But she's very young looking.
A Charlie Brooker joke there.
Aye. But I thought it was fantastic.
Beyonce knows, much like Dorian Gray. But
100. Do you see that woman? That woman has not aged since day dot, since she got famous. There's something sinister. I'm calling it now. You heard it here first.
We're going the long way around her music career. She just nips in, comes out 2 years later, releases an album, nips back in 2 more years. It's been 2 weeks for her music career. It's been 20 years for the rest of us.
True, I know. Yeah, she's too good looking, too young looking. But yeah, that was sort of summary of Death to 2020. It's almost the end of 2020. I hope you've had a good year. Nah, it's been shit for everybody. So 2021, we're looking forward to it, and hopefully we're going to get another Charlie Brooker project, which I believe I did see somewhere that we're hoping to do this every single year as an analysis of the year, which I think will be absolutely fantastic. And I'll probably go and watch some Screen Wipe. But thank you very much for joining us, Nathan.
Cheers.
And thank you very much, Mark, for joining us as well.
Thanks for having me.
We can do it. We can do this all day.